So welcome everybody. We are very happy you could join us today for our community learning series, which will give you a preview of what to expect as a kinesiology student at UIC. My name is Jo Wagner. I'm one of the academic advisors for the kinesiology program. I'm joined today by Whitney Harris and Abby Nobley, our other advisors in the kinesiology program. I am very excited to introduce this week's guests, Dr. Tracy Bernard and Dr. Josh Miller. They both bring many years of experience through working in the industry, through research, through education, and they really use all of that to inform their classroom content. And they are great contributors to the program. I don't want to steal any of their thunders. I know they're going to speak more to their background and research at UIC, so without further ado, I will turn it over to them. Everybody give a big welcome to Dr. Baynard and Dr. Miller.
Thank you. Hi, I am Tracy Bernard. I am Associate Professor here in the Department of Kinesiology and Nutrition. I arrived here at UIC in 2011, and before that I was at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, our sister institution, a couple hours south. And I was there, joined in 2007 as a postdoc, and then transitioned to an assistant professor in 2008 through 2011. Primarily, my experience in the field consists of research. That's my primary job, so to speak, but research combined, of course, with teaching, as well as some service and so forth. So my specific research interests lie in exercise physiology. I'm an exercise physiologist specifically focused on clinical exercise physiology, and what that means is interested in clinical populations, special populations. For instance, type 2 diabetes, heart failure, obesity. We work with kidney disease patients. We work with individuals with Down syndrome, just to show you the variety of patient populations that we work with. I work with humans, human research. Colleagues of mine do translational work, meaning that they work with tissues and so forth. They look at molecular mechanisms, and then they translate that to what does that mean for the human itself. I'm primarily interested in obesity and related complications. However, I have experience in other populations. Just a little bit about myself. I have two boys, a near 13-year-old and a 10-year-old. They keep my husband and I extremely busy, as you might imagine. We have entered that stage of life where we are taxi drivers. Our oldest plays ice hockey. He's a goalie, and our youngest is very interested in basketball. However, they've been exposed to a variety of different sports. No surprise, my husband and I were both PE majors back in college, way back when. So sport is an important part of our lives. Things that I like, my husband does a majority of the cooking, so I enjoy every meal that he makes. And then, of course, getting some physical activity in and exercise, of course, and love being near the water right now. In fact, I'm on Cape Cod in Massachusetts and plan to go to the beach after this with my boys. All right, Josh, your turn.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Josh Miller. I actually just arrived here roughly about 1 year ago, probably next month. Actually, I think next month. Prior to that, I was actually teaching in California. If you're familiar with California, I was in the Central Valley, Bakersfield. If you're not sure, just watch San Andreas and the helicopter scene where it crashes. That's exactly pretty much where I used to live. Over my years of experience, just to give you a little insight, I've pretty much been a jack of all trades. I've worked in hospital-based wellness, corporate wellness, community-based wellness. I did research with the military for about 7 years, whether it was at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Richmond, Virginia, or I was working actually in Washington State with the U.S. Army up there, where I actually got the opportunity to work with Rangers, military police, the infantry, and several other different branches of the Army. So I got a lot of experience working with injuries with active duty soldiers. Started out my interest with cardiopulmonary rehabilitation. So during my internship in my bachelor's degree, I got to work at the local hospital where I actually ran as an intern the pulmonary rehab program, since I actually am a pulmonary patient. So I had a great rapport with the patients there. I got to watch 2 open heart surgeries, which I thought was incredible. And over the years, I've been also working with athletes, whether it was with strength training or working with competitive cyclists. I did research over the years. One of my areas I'm kind of interested in is looking at body composition. So if you haven't seen the lab, and hopefully you guys will, we have a pod. I always like to describe it as an egg device that allows us to look at body composition. So I've actually done some research with that device. I'm interested in metabolic syndrome, which is a kind of a little piggyback onto Dr. Baynard's research looking at a cluster of cardiovascular and metabolic disease risk factors. And I'm also very interested in athletic testing of pretty much anybody, whether they are a healthy or diseased population, as well as athletes. If you turn my camera to the side, just to give you an idea, I am an avid cyclist. I do a lot of cycling. Right now, it's actually indoors. But when I lived in California, I actually got to head to the Tour of California for several years, where I actually had some friends racing. Living throughout the United States, we did a lot of hiking, and I spend a lot of time with my family, which is actually of four-legged creatures. So hopefully that gives you a little insight into both Tracy and I. So when we think about careers in our field, the one thing you really want to think about is think very broadly. The nice thing about kinesiology is it's vast. You can choose a job or think you want to be in one aspect of the field, let's say personal training. You really like working with individuals, but you don't see it as a career. You kind of see it as a job at the moment, but you can create your own niche in that area and basically make it a career. I also like to think about when you're making that decision, write down a list, pros versus cons. What do you like? What don't you like? Look at the courses that we actually teach in the program, because that'll give you examples of what you can do or what you should do. Growing up in Florida and working there, one of the ideas of it is can you be a person that gives nutritional advice versus write a nutritional program? So you want to think about what you can do and what you should be able to do. And then basically one other thing would be preparing for your career. You know, with our program, you actually get to do a lot of experiential learning. So that gives you a great opportunity to see if you like something. I loved cardiac rehab, so it gave me the opportunity to put in my time there and work with those patients. Maybe you were interested in research. Maybe you want to work in personal training area. So there's a lot of different opportunities within our field.
Exactly. I would concur. This is a really nice slide because it fits no matter what your interest is. And obviously, we hope that you major in kinesiology here at UIC. But if you end up ultimately being interested in biological sciences or English, literature, etc., these types of things to think about are critical for your future success in the job market.
So probably one of the biggest questions you might ask is how much money can you make? Because that's probably one of the biggest questions that maybe a family member asks, friends ask. So we wanted to include a slide that kind of gives you an idea of what the salaries are for an exercise physiologist. Is this information 100% true? No. Just to give you an idea, I grew up in Florida, did my bachelor's and master's degree in South Florida. I had friends that were personal trainers that charged $100 to $200 an hour to work with individuals. So these mean wages are giving you the idea of what the base or the median salary is going to be. You have the unlimited ability to basically do what you want to do within our field, and that's where the next step of how much you potentially can make. Just to give you an idea, if you look at the states, I've lived in 9 of them in the last 20 years. So you can actually see, I can actually look and see whereabouts I would make more money in comparison to where I used to live.
And it's important to note that that map there is specific. This is federal data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is a national database, and they collect information on a variety of careers and jobs. And this is specific, obviously, to exercise physiologists, which is a subset, a specialization, so to speak, within the field of kinesiology. And kinesiology, if you're literally brand spanking new to that concept, is the study of the human body, right? The study of movement in relation to humans and so forth. So to be an exercise physiologist, we're speaking specifically to understanding how the body functions, whereas there's other specializations as well. For instance, sport and exercise psychology as an example.
That kind of ties into what we're actually going to talk about in the next few slides. What we wanted to do is break down a little bit more, just to give you an idea of what careers within each subset of exercise physiology, kinesiology, or exercise science, depending upon how you define it. So thinking about like the career path that I chose, or during my career up until the last few years where I started teaching, working in a corporate wellness side or a fitness side, you have the opportunity to become a personal trainer, group fitness instructor. If you're interested in strength and conditioning, becoming a coach that works with athletes, or working with a population, let's say with children, you could become a health promotion specialist, where you actually help promote general well-being, getting the idea out there of 30 minutes a day of exercise at least 5 days a week, if not every day of the week. You can become a fitness leader, where you become specialized within that field. Let's say you want to own your own gym, or manage a fitness facility, or some type of facility that promotes general fitness and wellness. These are all opportunities that you would have if with working with studying at UIC within the kinesiology program. Kind of, if you wanted to become a teacher, there is a subset of those that choose to become a physical education teacher, or go into coaching or sports psychology. The field is basically unlimited. The nice thing about our field is it kind of gives you a nice step-off point. So let's say you want to become a teacher, work in a K through 12 setting. A lot of students in California that I worked with did become PE teachers, and then they also taught other programs. But what about the fact of becoming a coach or a sports psychologist? You can become a sport instructor. So there's a lot of different opportunities out there. And one of the last slides we'll talk about is going to be like different certifications within our field, but the certifications will help bring about your expertise within the field. A lot of people probably use our program to maybe want to go into a medicine area. Sports medicine is a really very popular area. If you're very familiar with sporting events, you'll actually see the athletic trainer. That's the gentleman that runs onto the field when potentially an athlete is injured.
Or lady.
Or lady, sorry.
I'll just say, or woman.
I apologize. I do apologize.
Nothing to apologize for. We were just adding, that's all.
But these are the individuals that run on the field that help the athletes get back, determine if it's an injury, is it a cramp, do they need to, get the doc out onto the field. So definitely these are going to be those individuals. The nice thing about an athletic trainer is they actually work with athletes from pre-injury to injury to post-injury. So you would actually see the athletes a lot more than, let's say, the strength and conditioning specialist, a lot more than maybe even the team physical therapist or chiropractor. So there's a lot of hands-on opportunities with the athletic trainer. Clinical exercise physiologist, this would be an individual that would work in a hospital-based facility, maybe in cardiac rehab or pulmonary rehab, working with individuals that have different diseases. This is where you start specializing into what you're interested in. There's also clinical exercise specialists, And then the nice thing is we can even roll into dietitian. When I was an advisor, when I would have students that, question what are they interested in, and they're like, well, what can I do? Dietitian is probably, a really great subset and a nice dovetail into our field, because you can actually work with individuals on losing weight via exercise, but then you can also incorporate the idea of changing their diets to help them, maintain a healthy lifestyle that way also. Kinesiology as a pre-professional pathway for allied health. Big title, but in simple terms, what we're looking at is maybe you're interested in becoming a physical therapist, occupational therapist. If you're not familiar with the difference between the two, I always think of a physical therapist as somebody that works with large joints, knees, shoulders, hips, maybe along that line, where an occupational therapist deals with those smaller areas, wrists, hands, maybe some ankles, but their job also is to work with patients that are at home-based, maybe modifying their homes so that they don't slip and fall in the shower. Basically helping people get back to work are also OT's jobs. A few years ago, I got hit by a car and I have a plate and some screws in my elbow. I actually saw the occupational therapist because that was the person that specialized with my type of injury. Maybe you want to become a doctor. You could become an MD or a DO, and that's what the osteopathic physician is. There is a difference between the two. Actually both are very similar nowadays, but the original idea between the DO and the MD was the DO believed in a health approach to patient care rather than prescribing a lot of medication. They believed in a little bit of a manipulation to help the person get better.
And more holistic yeah.
Yep.
Sorry.
That's okay. No. Maybe you want to be a nurse, PA. I always get asked the question, what would I do if I'm knowing now would I do the same thing? I would actually go maybe in PA school. Same benefits as a physician, just half the time. You get to perform surgery, you get to prescribe, you get to work with patients. You don't have a lot of times on-call hours. You don't have the same issues that a lot of doctors have to deal with in that sense. And you get to work with patients, which is incredible. You can become a clinical exercise physiologist, working cardiac rehab, chiropractic care, become a dentist. So it might not fit the idea of a true kinesiology major, but there is some benefit to knowing how the body works with a person that's interested in dentistry. It'd be very surprising to know that. Cardiovascular disease, there's been shown a link between issues with the teeth as well as heart disease. So that there is going to be some benefit to our field. Careers in higher education. Hold on a second. Maybe you have insight that you want to become like Tracy or I. You want to become a faculty member. You want to teach. You want to be a scientist. Definitely an opportunity to do so, to get a graduate degree and then go on to get your doctoral studies. Maybe you want to work in research. And within research, there is a few different subsets. You can be a research assistant. You can become the research coordinator that oversees the entire research program. You have to follow the guidelines established by let's say that if you're working with a research grant with the government, you have to make sure that you meet all those guidelines that meet governmental standards. You would help prepare all the documents for the research study, recruit research subjects. So there's a lot of different opportunities, as you're seeing, that we've been talking about.
And manage the data is often an important one under research coordinator.
Yes, thank you. Additional opportunities, maybe you're unsure that you've seen a lot of things that we've talked about, but maybe you're interested in becoming a representative of a company that maybe deals with drugs or medications. There are people that actually work with medical devices in our field that are very popular. You actually go in and teach the physicians how to use the device. You can actually go into surgeries. Think about those individuals that deal with replacement of the hip, knee, elbow joints. That would also be a great opportunity. Industry representative. When you come to campus, you'll actually see by going to the labs that we have different types of equipment. Each equipment manufacturer has individuals that work for them to help sell their product or teach how to use their product. I've got friends that work for a few of these companies that enjoy what they do, and the kinesiology background certainly helps them speak our language and then go to the professionals and be able to talk and understand how to use the devices properly. Or maybe you have an idea of a career that you want to do that's completely different than what we've listed here. You can take that opportunity and create it. It's limitless. You can create an app on getting people to exercise more. A device that no one's thought about. These are all opportunities that you would have from this program.
Yep. To add to the entrepreneurial side of things, I know a student that we have in our master's program. He's interested, for example, in health literacy. That he is from a Latino background, and he wants to be able to share information, translate scientific information that can be easily understood in his community back home to help them engage in healthier lifestyles, as an example. So something related to science and English and Spanish and so forth. And just like you said, with other things, on the business side, there's many people who are interested in the business connecting with understanding how the body works.
I believe this is our last slide, but a lot of the times within our field, certifications are very important. I listed really, in my opinion, the two top organizations in our field that created certifications. These are nationally certified, which basically simply means that the federal government has approved them and signed off on them with their guidelines. And depending upon what you're interested in, if you are, let's say, interested in a more health and wellness approach, the American College of Sports Medicine would be probably the route you would go. There are several certifications that the American College of Sports Medicine puts out. They have two tracks you can go on. One is the health and wellness side, and the second is a clinical side. So let's say you end up working in a cardiac rehab facility and you wanted to be the head exercise physiologist that does all the testing. They do a clinical exercise physiologist certification that you could sit for. And once you pass that, then those letters go on your business card. The National Strength and Conditioning Association is another organization. As you can tell just by the name alone, it's very strength and conditioning oriented, but they do have some new certifications that they're putting out. One is a special populations certification. So this would be the individual that works in a clinical setting or a setting that deals with a different population, someone that has diabetes or heart disease or pulmonary disease. They also created a tactical certification. So let's say you work with firefighters, police officers, military. You can actually have a certification that would be specific for that. There are several others in our field, ACE, NAFM, I can't even remember all of them, but there are a lot. And really the biggest thing would be is research them, make sure that this would fit the position that you have chosen. One certification that I didn't put up here, which is actually probably the most important one, is BLS certification, Basic Life Support certification by the American Heart Association. Everybody, no matter what, should know how to do CPR. And for all of our certifications, they require you to maintain your BLS certification. So if you haven't become BLS certified, hopefully over your next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years while you're here at UIC, you will get to be BLS certified, and then you'll maintain it throughout your career.
Yep.
And there's the last one.
Regarding the certifications, I will just add that it's important that if you're interested in becoming certified, do your homework. For instance, different organizations, as Dr. Miller mentioned, offer personal training certifications. American College of Sports Medicine offers a exercise specialist, which would be the equivalent of a personal training certification, and they have emphasis. They have different subsequent certifications, for example, breast cancer specialist, so forth. And as he mentioned, the National Strength and Conditioning Association, ACE, do your homework. See what the type of employer that you're looking to be hired by, what they're really looking for. Some of us in the field kind of rank order these. There is no official rank order of which one's top-notch or considered top-notch or so forth. But some of us have personal lists in our heads as how they might rank compared to each other. For example, ACSM certifications often require a degree in the field, a bachelor's at minimum, whereas ACE you just bought the book and took the test. You didn't have to have a degree. So there's positives and negatives with some of these. Cost is also another issue. So just do your homework and make sure that you're investing in a certification that fits you best for your goals. All right. What do we do next?
Thanks. Oh, I was going to say thank you so much. That was really interesting. Is what I love about kinesiology is that there are so many things that you can do. It's such a broad science-based field that you can really go in any direction you want to. So thank you so much for kind of sharing some of the opportunities that we have at UIC for new and incoming students and current students, of course. I see a few current students in the house, so that's always important. So we do have some time for questions. So students, again, if you have any questions for our special faculty guests, let us know. You can drop them in the chat. Again, we won't embarrass you. We'll just you'll get your question answered and kind of move on.
And I'd like to hit to that point that Whitney just made about kinesiology being a broad science-based field, and Dr. Miller mentioned this earlier, but this is what I think is what sets our major apart from other science-based majors, for instance, biological sciences, biology, chemistry, or clinically based majors, nursing, etc., is that we're giving you a very broad foundation. We're giving you a foundation that includes knowledge of anatomy, physiology, psychology, etc., both working with healthy populations, clinical populations. We give you a taste of some of the more advanced work. And this allows you to put the pieces together for what fits you best. For instance, if you're a nursing student, you're very likely to become a nurse. Obviously, they're preparing you for that, but we can prepare you not only for that, but other venues. And you just have to go out and grab it. That's what makes one of the things that really makes our type of major truly unique and gives many people, in my opinion, a leg up.
And to kind of piggyback, not to keep going back and forth with Dr. Baynard, but it's a hands-on science-based program, so almost all of our classes have a lab component. And it's really important that you enhance your clinical skills at the undergraduate level. And so I think that our program does a phenomenal job. Not that there's anything wrong with any other disciplines, kind of like we said, but our program definitely does a really great job at developing some hands-on clinical skills while you're in the undergraduate arena.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question while students are maybe trying to think about what they thought about your presentation. How do you get involved if you're thinking about getting involved with maybe a military population? So I know that Dr. Miller, you mentioned the tactical cert with the NSCA. So what are your recommendations for students that are interested in maybe getting involved in more of the military or firefighter or the police kind of service industry?
The first thing to do, one thing I've always learned, especially when I was basically in the same seat that probably everybody is at the same time, is get to know people in the field. Ask people questions. Do you know somebody? When I was an undergrad, I actually took a class, my introductory to exercise science course. We actually brought in guest speakers that had different jobs within the field, and I tried to remember the ones that I was really interested in, and I reached out to them. I'm not from here, so I'm learning different people within the field, but I'm sure there are faculty members that actually know different people that work within the field, whether it's police or firefighters or even the military. Reach out to them, ask questions. For me, it just also lucked out that I actually got lucky enough to actually have a job within the military. But even then, you actually continue to reach out and touch base with other people, because you never know what the door will open when you get to meet somebody and they can help out. Getting to know all your faculty members do help out a lot also.
I'll piggyback onto that if you don't mind as well. To me, one of the things that can help get you connected with those types of services, military, fire service, and so forth, is research. Research. We've worked with the fire service in our lab. We have a good colleague who was down at Urbana, who moved a couple years ago actually out to Washington, but he was a big member of the Illinois Fire Service Institute, and we did a lot of research projects with them, looking at how so I'm a cardiovascular exercise physiologist. I don't think I mentioned that earlier, but we looked to see how dehydration, how the stress, for example, impacted the heart. Why are firefighters, for example, at one of the highest risk populations in these tactical type careers, these fields? I have a friend who was a civilian who worked at U.S. Narium, which is a research, what am I trying to say? It's a research facility here in Massachusetts, just outside of Boston. And I actually know a good number of people who work in the U.S. On the research side within both the Navy and as well as the U.S. Army, and they conduct a lot of research on how to keep our military safe. I have colleagues who are funded by the DoD to do research. Now they're working in an academic institution, but they're working with the idea to develop, for instance, how do we protect soldiers in combat if they are hit with shrapnel or something? How do we protect them from bleeding out? How does the body respond to that? What's physiologically happening, and how can we combat that in the field or immediately in recovery? So to me, research is also just a great way to get involved with these different types of situations. I will say joining the military as well is another way of getting involved. I've known 3 people who joined the military, and they might have either joined it outright or been an ROTC member and climbed the ranks through college, no pun intended, did their 4 years of service, and then they specifically went after research opportunities within their specific branch. I've known someone in the Army, Air Force, and Navy who've done that, and both have been very successful. And then they transitioned to academic fields after that, and they had the military pay for their graduate education.
Thank you, guys. Looks like we had a question come in from a student. So my career interests fall within higher education as well as becoming a clinical exercise physiologist. What are the pros and cons between pursuing a PhD versus an EDD?
And there's probably not too much. Well, there is a difference. I will say there is a difference. A PhD is really preparing you, in my opinion, to conduct research. An EDD, while it is a terminal degree, and if someone has a PhD versus an EDD, they will very likely get the same pay and so forth and so on. You'll be recognized as having a terminal degree. But a PhD specifically trains individuals to conduct research. We train you about the research process. We train you on how to deal with the regulatory issues, whether they're human or animal or combined. We train you how to think critically about research, how to ask good questions, learn how to fill in where the gaps are. An EDD, while it may have, obviously, it will have a research component. Don't get me wrong. I have colleagues, I have good friends who have EDDs, but they're really training you for a pedagogical career. Pedagogy, the study of teaching. So they're really teaching you how to become a fantastic teacher. And it's not an easy task. There are a lot of subtleties to be mastered with teaching. Learning how to work with different populations of students from primary to secondary, if that's what somebody's interested in, on up through higher education. And then there's science education, there's English education, there's all kinds of subspecialties, just as there are in our field as well. I'm sure Josh has something to add too.
Not really. I actually have friends that have pursued EDDs in our field, and they do not, you still, no matter what, can still get a job teaching in our field. A friend of mine who just actually retired from teaching in California had an EDD, and he was the foremost authority in testing with isokinetic dynamometers. It's a device that allows us to set how hard a person wants to contract a muscle. And he was probably the only, or I don't want to say the only, but basically the foremost authority in that field. So it's going to be dependent upon, one, where you want to go to school in that sense, and two, the opportunities you have. Maybe the school you attend has an EDD program rather than a PhD program. It really turns out what you do with it. I don't have a PhD. I actually have a doctorate of health sciences. So there is a little difference also between what I did versus what Dr. Baynard did. We're still teaching in the same realm.
Exactly. Yep, the PhD it's designed for a different, with a very heavy emphasis on research. Typically, PhD students are not, if it's a straight up kinesiology or an exercise physiology or something along those lines type of PhD program that they're enrolled in, they're typically not getting that much exposure to pedagogy. They may be having an opportunity to teach via being a teaching assistant for as little as one semester up to every semester, depending on funding available. But they're not taking classes. They're not taking coursework in how to become a teacher. What are best practices, for instance, for developing a syllabus? What are best practices for conveying information, lecture, didactic, small group projects, active learning, all these different types of issues that people that are learning how to teach come across in an EDD program. And that's one of the drawbacks of a PhD program, traditional PhD program, is that we don't teach us how to become teachers when most of us are aiming to go into higher education. I had a little different experience personally because I graduated from Syracuse University with my PhD, but my PhD is officially in science education with an emphasis in exercise physiology. We were part of the School of Education. And so I had to take a minimum number of credits in pedagogy. I also had to do 2 dissertations, one, my main exercise physiology dissertation, and I also had to do a dissertation related to science education. So I had lots of fun in my program. But I would say that, there aren't many people in my field that are coming from that have some type of pedagogy training, and having an EDD would certainly be a leg up if you're really interested in teaching, and combining that, of course, with research. You will still be required to do research no matter where you're at, whether it's a research institution or more of a teaching institution, if that's your ultimate goal. However, the proportion is quite different. The expectations are different, and often at teaching institutions, they're incorporating the research inside the classroom as well.
I have a question for both of you. So if I'm a new, first-year student or a transfer student, and I'm just getting started off in my exploration, my career exploration, right? What is your advice on how I can get the ball rolling? Because like you all talked about so many great different subdisciplines within kinesiology. What if I'm kind of at the beginning of my search? How do I get the ball rolling? And then a second piece to that would be, you know, what within the kinesiology program kind of helps prepare me for that next step? Like you've talked a lot about research or a lot about teaching or working with patients. What in the program is going to help prepare me for those things?
In my opinion, two things will help you, and I'm sure if you asked me this question tomorrow, I probably would say something slightly different, but I do believe the message would be the same. Two things, in my opinion: coursework. Don't be afraid to take a variety of courses. It may take, a solid, maybe that first year you're test driving things from a theoretical side, as well as hopefully some practical. As it was mentioned earlier, a lot of our courses have laboratories, hands-on labs, and that gives you a sense of, I kind of like this. But the other thing is, don't be afraid, if you have the time, to try and get involved. Talk with those faculty members, talk with fellow students, talk with the senior students. How did you do that? What can I do? Don't wait for someone to grab you by the hand and take you down the road, because they're not. They're worried about themselves. You must advocate for your own interests, even if you don't know what they are yet, and that's perfectly normal. Personally, when I was an undergrad, I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life. I could have never told you in a million years that I would be, a professor. Oh my God, are you kidding me? When I was an undergrad, I had thought I wanted to be an athletic trainer, and I was very into athletic training. But then in my senior year, I don't know, my brain exploded, and I had self-doubt, and I didn't know where I wanted to take things and so forth. But what I had done is, in my undergraduate, I took an opportunity to work with a senior faculty member and help him with his research. In fact, I did my undergrad in Maryland, and we took a road trip up to New York on Long Island, and I helped him exercise test, do these max tests on literally 80 rowers in 2 days. And I didn't know what was really going on, but I helped, and I got things set up. I cleaned stuff. I motivated people. I didn't, read the tests or calibrate things because I was afraid I'd screw things up. But that experience really weighed heavily on me in a positive way, and it helped guide me several years later. I enjoyed that experience. I enjoyed the hell out of that experience. So when I started my master's program a number of years after my undergrad, I naturally gravitated to helping all the first-year master's students with their research, and I got involved. I challenged myself because I'm naturally an introvert. Considering how much I'm talking right now, I know that seems strange, but I challenged myself to push my boundaries and outside my comfort zone, and I assisted every single master's student with their research projects. I helped them in the lab. I helped troubleshoot. I helped collect the data. I helped fix equipment. I worked with the subjects. I enjoyed working with the people, talking with them, and I'll stop talking right now, so I'll let Josh have a chance. I could talk about this question forever, but to each their own. But getting involved and advocating for yourself. When I was a master's student, I had other students telling me, how come you get to help so-and-so? How come you're on that abstract? How come you got to be on that paper? No one invited me. I invited myself, and I made myself useful.
I agree. Volunteer. That's going to be, the biggest thing. Just to give you an idea, I didn't start out the same way. I started out actually as a biology major. I thought I was going to go to medical school. And one day, while sitting waiting for, I couldn't even tell you what class it is, probably physics or something, I sat down and go, do I really want to do this? Do I want to be in school for 10 years, be $250,000 in debt? That kind of spooked me. So I actually quit school for a while. And then I went back 2 years later, finished up my bachelor's degree, and realized what I really liked to do was to basically kind of stay in the field, but I got to pick and choose what I did. My first job in the field was working at a senior citizens community that I was a fitness instructor. And I really enjoyed it. I got to meet people, I got to work with them. And then my senior year, I actually did a internship, like I said, in cardiac rehab. I was required to put in 400 hours. I actually put in about 500 to 550 hours. It was my decision to put in that extra time. During the summer before grad school, I actually worked in the research lab, and I got the opportunity to be the research assistant in the lab. So any research project that was being done by faculty or graduate student, I worked on, which helped open the door to several other opportunities. I got a call from a friend saying, "Hey, do you want to come do a doctorate in Nebraska?" And I'm like, "Sure." And my wife and I moved to Nebraska, and we started a doctoral program there. You just never know. Take the opportunities that come before you. I used to tell my students, sit down, write down what you're interested in, because when you write these things down, you'll actually be able to see what kind of interests you the most, and write down what you don't like to do. Mm-hmm. I thought about going to nursing school because I was working in cardiac rehab, and that would be a great tie-in. I don't mind touching, at that time I was working, walking patients that just had open heart surgery. I didn't mind touching them, but I don't want to clean patients. So I knew where my limitations were. And that's going to be the big thing. Figure out what you like and what you don't like. And
not that nurses only clean patients.
I know.
They do,
nursing
yes,
school. Nursing school. That was where I was like, that was my thing. It's like, don't want to do that. So it's just really interesting. And then you never know, doors open, opportunities happen. And I have faculty, my former faculty that I used to work with, you never know, they could open a door for you. Your teachers. I still communicate with my faculty, my teachers that taught me in my bachelor's program, and the opportunities are still there. Occasionally you get a phone call, "Hey, are you interested in this?" The doors just open. So make friends, get to know your faculty, get to know, the people you're going to work with, get to know your fellow classmates, because you too never know what doors they can help open for you. And last, I would say is just read a lot. During this time that we've been indoors, I've read, 16 books, I think, and I'm still reading. So that helps you keep interested in the field and helps determine what you're looking to do also.
Thank you. I really appreciate both of your feedback kind of on that idea. And just to give a quick plug to academic advising, if you're not really sure where to go and where to get connected, we're a really great first stop because we can help you kind of figure out what your goals are, kind of analyze your strengths, weaknesses, abilities, and habits, and try to get you connected to the faculty member or to the research project to kind of help you moving along. I know a lot of students are quick to say, I want to be a PT or I want to be an OT, but they don't, kind of like what Dr. Miller was just alluding to, they don't stop to think about what's the patient population. Are they old? Are they young? Are they active? Are they sedentary? Are they experiencing challenges from a specific injury, illness, or disease? And then think about what you want to do with that population, because I could work with older adults as the day is long and not be a physical therapist. So there's just a lot of different opportunities if you just kind of, like they said, slow down, think about what you want. And that's actually the second time I've heard a faculty member say reading for pleasure is actually something that inspires them or can inspire you in your thoughts and your ideas and what you want to do and where you see yourself going in the future. So bottom line, if you don't know where to go to get connected, start with your advisor. that was a plug there for advising.
That's awesome.
So we have a comment. It's so great to know so much about you two. Your journeys are so inspiring and motivating. I agree. I love hearing about, faculty, how you got on your path, especially when it's not point A to point B, right? Because I feel like some people assume it's point A to point B, and it's not. There's detours and twists and turns all the time, and sometimes those are good things. So, well, I have one last question for you guys, unless we have any more student questions coming in. What is your favorite thing about teaching at UIC?
I'll let you go first, Josh, since you just finished your first year.
I actually enjoy taking what I've done over the last 20 years and actually just, bringing it to the students, talking about the different opportunities, different things I've done, because it really does help, I think, a lot of the times seeing what else is out there, what opportunities there are. You just never know. And you pick up a computer, I'll go on the computer, and I actually became friendly with some, gentlemen that live in Europe and live in Belgium, and I actually do a little occasional podcast with them, looking at physiological responses to exercise with cycling, with actually masters cyclists. So you just never know, and there's a lot of opportunities, and that definitely is one of the things I love to bring to the classroom. I'll let you go, Tracy.
That's a very difficult question for me to answer in a short period of time, because there's just so much that I truly enjoy and love about teaching here at UIC. I thoroughly love teaching undergrads in a large classroom. Granted, we won't be doing that for the immediate future, but hopefully not too far after that. I love interacting with students in the classroom. I love seeing light bulbs go off. I love helping them work through a challenging problem to overcome a misconception, or to get them from point A to point B, but then C to D to E. I love working with them outside of the classroom as much as I do inside the classroom. I love helping those students. It may be an honors college student that's assigned to me. It may be somebody who's come to me on the side of their own volition, or vice versa. I've come to them for whatever reason. They've something about them, something I know. Hey, I think you'd be a good candidate for XYZ. Helping students, figure out how do I get into research. For example, had a student helped explore an opportunity at the University of Florida for this summer. Unfortunately, she didn't get to go, but she was accepted into their program because I didn't do it for her, but I helped her put things together and think about the why she wanted to do that, and how that would help set her up for her future goals. I love working with the graduate students. I love working with motivated master's students. I love working with my PhD students and helping them grow and become hopefully future researchers. Some of them have different agendas, but many of them do want to enter into academics, and to teach them what it means to be an academic researcher. I love working with my colleagues in the department. I love working with the colleagues in their college, in the university. I love teaching people about exercise and how freaking awesome it is, and that it is the type of medicine. That's a phrase from American College of Sports Medicine. Exercise is medicine, but how truly exercise has so many positive benefits with no negative side effects, really. There isn't anything about my job I don't love, other than sometimes the paperwork can be challenging.
I think we all feel that way about paperwork.
But there isn't any career that doesn't have paperwork. So
true. This is very true. Very true. Looks like we got one more question. Do you have any recommendations for quality research literature within exercise physiology or related topics, or any specific journals to look into?
That's a great question. There are some journals in our field that are better than other journals. Two journals that I would recommend, you can go to their websites and just anything that interests you in it. They're typically going to be very well vetted. They obviously go under what we call peer review, where colleagues in the field, it's usually blinded, will evaluate the paper before it's published and make oftentimes quite a few, sometimes just a little bit, but very pertinent and relevant suggestions on how to improve the manuscript, questions that they have for the research, the interpretation, the methodology, the rationale. But two of those journals, one I would say is Handson Science, Sports and Exercise. That's the premier journal in the exercise realm. It's the top ranked journal right now. So that nickname is MSSE. And then we have Journal of Applied Physiology. That's also the second ranked. They often switch places, number 1 and number 2 ranked in the sports sciences. but Journal of Applied Physiology is also a very high quality journal for the sports sciences and heavy on the exercise physiology. Another one under that within the American Physiological Society would be the American Journal of Physiology, and then there's subsets, heart and circulation and comparative physiology. Those are two that are also excellent resources. I would suggest to start with those. And many times you can go to their websites and there's free articles to download from that month's issue that are selected. Or if you're searching those journals through UIC's library, you can get automatic access to any of the manuscripts within those journals. You have to go through the UIC library link, though, first, Pubmed. If you don't know how that works, just send me an email and I'll help you out.
Yeah, I was going to follow up on that. And on PubMed, what you can also do is put in specific searches for topics you're interested in. Yeah, kind of create your own bibliography. And each day you can go in and refresh it, and there'll be potentially new articles that have been published by that day or within that month. And then you can actually skim the abstracts and determine if it's something you want to get. Then you can actually get it from the library, whether they have it on through the library itself or from interlibrary loan. Are great opportunities that way also.
But please use the UIC library connection, because that feeds you into everything that the UIC library has purchased, has subscriptions to through the University of Illinois system. It's very powerful, and you don't have to spend money on your own.
Thank you, guys. And I know our UIC library loves to help students find whatever they're looking for. They're always very happy when students come to them for help with research or anything else. So they're fantastic. So, all right, it doesn't look like we have any more questions. I will go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you again to Dr. Baynard and Dr. Miller, and thank you to everybody that joined us today. We hope that we got you excited about your kinesiology classes. And believe it or not, we're just a few weeks away from classes starting. I know, it's crazy. Time flies. By. And if you haven't done so already, there's still time to submit your intent to enroll, complete your orientation, and get registered for classes with your advising team. So thank you again to Dr. Baynard and Dr. Miller and to everybody else for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you all on campus.
Have a great rest of your summer. See you.
Bye, guys.
See ya.